currently serving as the inaugural Data Commissioner. She has experience spanning over 23 years in women rights. She started working for FIDA. She has experience in elections, and she's currently serving as a Data Commissioner. Kindly welcome Commissioner Kasayat Immaculate. Kasait, I am so sorry, Kasait Senior Counsel. Our third panelist, she's an advocate, and her specialty is AI governance, data protection, and litigation. She comes all the way from the Lakeside City. Kindly welcome Aprophilia Agnasa. And finally, a friend of FIDA, a former secretariat member. He's currently a lecturer and coordinator of the paralegal training program at the KSL. Kindly welcome Dennis Otieno. So the panel basically touches on innovation. So we're looking at how innovation and technological advances can be used to further women leadership, and how it can also be used to further democratic participation and gender justice. So to start us off, we'll start with Natasha. So with regards to leadership, today, leadership is very different because of public opinion, which is rapidly shaped by misinformation, and it spreads very fast, and it's in real time. So, and there's a lot of public scrutiny. So in your view, what qualities will define effective and principled leadership in this new democratic landscape? And what can lawyers do to ensure that the public trusts, and we can also strengthen public institutions in the era of digital transformation? 5 minutes.
Hello? Yeah, this works. You know, Kristen, in my age, you can't ask me all those questions. I don't even remember the first question you asked. No, I'm joking. I'm really joking. With the pre-warning, obviously, I'm not an expert in this area. Everything that I'm about to talk to you about is based on the experience that I've had. I really feel, regardless of whether or not we are in a technological era or not, the basic requirements of a leader has always been the same. I think it will always be the same. I don't ever see it changing. The most important one for me is integrity. I know we always throw that word around. We're like, we expect it to be, to have integrity, but actually always having it at the back of your mind and actually practicing that integrity makes a very big difference, regardless of what era that we're in. And I think a second issue that we really need to get used to, and regardless of whether we're men or women, is that just get used to saying, I don't know. I really feel like you're better off saying, I don't know, let me consult, or let me actually take a step back and actually think about this decision before actually making the decision and coming back and thinking, oh God, that was a bad one, and trying to hide for a whole week or two. The next issue that I would actually think is very important is humility. Sometimes tunajisahau, I feel. It's very important kujita mkutano once in a while. And when I say call yourself to a meeting, literally call yourself to a meeting and just check in with yourself. Like, am I doing what I'm supposed to do as a leader? So again, with the technology coming into play, it's easier for people to call you into that meeting, online, via social media, via WhatsApp. So I really feel before they call you to that meeting, call yourself. So by the time that someone's telling you that you have done something wrong, you already know, and you're already trying to rectify that issue in advance. Courage. Courage is very important. I feel like if you go into leadership with that element of fear, you will get nothing done. Not everyone's going to love you. You're not dessert. You're not chocolate or candy or, So not everyone will love you. The whole idea is not for you to be popular. The whole idea is for you to work in the best interest of the people, which would sometimes mean making that difficult decision that not everyone is happy with immediately, but the after effects of it benefits everyone else around you. You have to be adaptable. For example, Mombasa Law Society team and Coast Ranch know that I came into a council that I was the only one from one team. Everybody else was literally from what you would call the opposing team then. But coming into that council, you have to be adaptable, knowing, look, everyone came there with an agenda. Everyone has a manifesto. Everyone has the best interest of the society at heart. So you can't just come there waving your manifesto, being like, I'm the one who's correct and I'm the one who's supposed to get this sorted. So adaptability is very, very important. And discipline. We all know about discipline, guys. You wake up in the morning, you really don't want to do it, but you have to do it. I mean, it's your job. As a leader, you're meant to be taking those hard tackles and making those hard decisions, whether or not you're having a fantastic day. Actually, is Chair here? I was just telling her, today I'm having a bad hijab day. Literally, that's a thing, guys, by the way, like a bad hair day, but we have bad hijabs day. But you show up literally and still get it done. And I think most importantly is don't be defensive, listen. I mean, sometimes it hurts. It really does, because not everyone's going to sugarcoat it for you and be like, by the way, Chair, I think. But there must be something in what they're telling you. So remove your emotions and your feelings and literally just listen to what is it that the person is telling you, whoever it is that you're leading, and where are you going wrong. I feel personally, you're better off being told, for example, in the middle of your term, when you've already done 1 year but have 1 year left, that by the way, you're messing up in this place, fix it, then for someone to wait for you to come out of that position and go, by the way, you like kufanya chochote. So, so accept whatever it is that people are telling you, and then adjust accordingly to what you think as a leader would benefit the people. But usiwe na makasiriko sana, because that's what leadership is about, literally. And I think lastly is let us try to not be reactive. And so I think if it's possible to foresee the problem, if it's possible for you to, from a distance, be, look, I see this is coming and this is something we need to fix, then fix it in advance. Also, don't react to everything that happens around you, because sometimes people are just waiting to rally you up, especially on social media. And there are days, guys, I wake up and I open WhatsApp and I'm tagged in 20 groups. You see that and you're thinking, my God, how are we starting this thing? So I think if you're not reactive, and if you understand that there's always something what people are telling you, and you are able to adjust and you're able to accommodate, I think that leadership journey will be a lot more easier for you. And I think that applies to both men and women, regardless of whether it's in a professional sort of leadership or any other kind of setup. Yes.
Madam Commissioner, this is a question for you. Can regulation become an enabler of innovation rather than simply a mechanism for control? So we are looking at the laws, we are looking at how it intertwines with the constitutional, like principles and Article 10. Mm-hmm. So how do we use regulation to actually grow innovation rather than to limit it? And how does it look in the Kenyan context?
Okay. Thank you for the question. One, let me start by thanking the board of FIDA. It's been a while since I was here. I was just saying you really have done a fantastic job to mobilize people in a coastal town to sit and have a room full of young women to just listen. I think for me that's very impressive. Just to go straight to the question you've asked around innovation and whether it's a deterrent or we need it in the Kenyan context. I picked that because I came to a space of which was really uncharted waters and what we call in business school a blue ocean. And I'm giving that story so that we are able to then juxtapose what is expected. At the point where we're starting this story about data protection, the European Union had started what we call GDPR, the General Regulations on Privacy. And the conversation in Europe was, there was a quick realization that we are in a space that we have big tech giants who are coming and harvesting data in an era of capitalism surveillance. And nobody is holding them accountable. And so Kenya gets into that space in 2019, what then was called a coalition of the willing, that is Tanzania, not Tanzania, Kenya, Rwanda, and Uganda. The three presidents then want to leapfrog technology, and they realize one of the basic thread that used to cut across is digital trust. And digital trust then becomes an issue of what spurs the economy, that is digital ID. And you had earlier, even the earlier speakers asking, even you, unclaimed asset. I hope somebody from the registration of persons is here. Because you don't transact online based on, without have digital trust. So fast forward, that is how the Office of the Data Commissioner came into being, and the reason, the pushback by civil society about why would we trust the government with our data. So we enter a space which is totally unregulated, a space where the innovators of internet, they did not want regulation, they did not want governance. And they wanted just a free world where you could, one most important, freedom of expression. And now you then are asking people who are so used to getting your information, you must hold them accountable. And that is why many a times regulation of this space, and especially on data protection, is often seen as a deterrent to innovation. People see like we are entering a space we shouldn't be asking questions. We've seen pushback from simple entertainment spots. When you penalize them for sharing people's information without asking for their consent, they're like, please read this notice. Once you enter here, we can do whatever we like with your information. And they don't want that. But I often ask, and that's why regulations becomes a core centerpiece for this conversation on trust. What's the flip side? What's the flip side of people who are allowed to use their information? We've seen, if we don't regulate that space, we've seen doxing, we've seen fake news, we've seen women suffering in terms of digital violence. That space has to be regulated, because in any society, if we don't put guardrails, then it's a free fall. Then we don't hold people accountable. So regulation is not to deter, it's to help you have guardrails and say, come on, we are engaging, but these are the do's and the don'ts. That is what regulation, in the context of the Constitution, there is no better time. I think the crafters of the Constitution, when we spoke about the right to privacy, that your information cannot be shared unnecessarily, at that point we didn't envisage what this is. So the work around privacy is centered on our Constitution, and it applies. I think in Africa we are trailblazers. Of course, I mean we are activists anyway. We are a very woke society. We are trailblazers. We have a framework that provides space, that provides guardrails, that also provides trust. Today, any financial institution, any insurance company, and including government, we are asking questions. Why are you using my information and for what? What that does, it actually improves trust. And I say, if people trust you, they'll allow you to use the information and your business thrives. Because trust is what helps a digital world thrive better. I'll stop there. Thanks.
Afrophilia, this is for you. How can AI laws be more accountable to advance women's leadership, democratic participation, and gender justice? Because we are moving into the era of AI laws, where we are finding that technology is moving way faster than the legal space can, even the legal regulation can. So as a practitioner in that area and someone with international experience, how can we make AI laws to be more accountable, also not limiting innovation, but ensuring that, like there's governance, there's leadership, and there's, gender justice?
Thank you. I'd like to answer that in two layers. The first I will come to later, but the headliner is we confuse severity of regulation policies with impact and protection, which is not always the case. I'll come back to that. I'll start with what AI governance is and what this means for us as an African people in general, and why we need to take it very, very seriously. when the EU set out to create the EU AI Act that the rest of the entire world is borrowing from, they set out to do that, to create the EU Act to map out the risks and mitigations. And then alongside this act, there was supposed to be the AI Liability Act. Yeah? But then they quickly realized that they were going to open up the world to more chaos than resolution. So they pulled out the Liability Act in October of 2025, leaving a vacuum unaddressed, even with simple soft law or guidance, nothing. Now, why is this important? When we talk about AI governance and data protection, what this means, for the international community, the West, this means something different. For us, it also means something different. The AI governance rules were things that were theorized with the Western systems in mind. And then now what African governments are doing, we are transposing all the regulations like they exist to ours without contextualizing to our setups. What we need to do, and this is something that I wrote to the department handling our new AI policy when they opened, when they put out a call for comments. I personally feel that our AI governance regulations need to go an extra mile. Fine, if you choose to transpose the laws theorized in the West, then go the extra mile and then answer, contextualize it to our system, such that our AI governance rules should be able to answer questions like, what happens when the law assumes capacity? What happens when the law assumes that a hospital smack in the middle of Kakamega County is well equipped with a functioning DPO, well resourced, with stable and uninterrupted power supply and internet access to monitor the logs and access credentials like the AI governance rules expect? What happens when the law assumes that that group of people is digitally literate? What happens when the law assumes our judicial system has algorithmic capacity to answer and tend to AI technology issues? Our AI governance needs to go that extra mile. The second layer of this question is the one I talked about. We often confuse severity of punishment with safety, which is not the case, because Kenya is not starting from a blank space or a white space. We already have Article 37, Section 37 of the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act, which condemns some of these things. And in fact, the language they have used covers even deep fakes and AI-generated stuff, yeah? Now, so wouldn't you say that on paper we are robust enough in terms of regulations, but why is this not working? Because we are only leaning on a top-down approach, forgetting there is a bottom-up approach that could be as effective in terms of addressing this issue. What those women, like the woman who was, the politician who was forced to withdraw because of the deep fakes and whatnot, what they needed at that point in time is not more severe laws. They needed things like, number one, faster takedowns, yeah? Because if you're going, and personally I feel like this is one of those conversations we can't have just the legal framework and the policy alone. We have to have this conversation in tandem while addressing the institutional capacity. Yeah, because you can have these brilliant laws, but if the police and the forensic teams are ill-equipped, then we are stuck. And then we need to regulate platforms. Currently, Kenya is handling platforms on a terms of service basis. And I'll give you the example of the Meta case that was being handled by the Kenyan courts. Literally, their opening line, Meta came to court and told Kenyan courts, you don't have jurisdiction to hear any of us, because they are not, we are not controlling them like they are controlled. In the US, they even, the US, the Take Down, the 2015 Take It Down, whatever, that regulates and governs these platforms, such that if from the point complaint is triggered that there was a safety concern and a deep fake affecting someone, the rules are that platform has to freeze that until until discussion and whatever. So I don't know. I'll stop there because I could I could run the risk of talking all through.
Thank you very much. Dennis, over to you. Now, because we've already looked at leadership, democracy, and how to regulate. Having worked at FIDA, how do you think, in your view, what do you think will determine whether digital innovation becomes a genuine equalizer for the women and girls in Kenya rather than another source of exclusion?
Okay, thank you so much for that particular question. With the experience that I gathered in FIDA, especially exposure to different spaces across the legal divide, one of the things that I believe the digital platform or the digital space now can bring about equality is through movement building. Feminism largely got its strength from movement building, and movement building focuses solely on using different spheres, using different stakeholders in being able to push a narrative or an agenda. With the come of the digital platform, most people were more focused on the entertainment aspect of the digital platform. Those are TikTok, social medias like Instagram, YouTube, those spaces where people are largely getting entertainment. However, there has been a slow creeping in of using entertainment platforms to berate or belittle women at large. Many a times people will just treat it as humor and dismiss it as humor, but it comes much more dangerous if you don't realize that that is also a part of movement building for the anti-rights campaign. And I would pick it from an example of the Red Pill Network. The Red Pill Network brands itself as people who want to use strict focus on anti-rights campaign, but they make it look like humor. And how do they do this? They have platforms where men are seated interviewing women, and they interview them in a manner that berates the view of women in the society. So people will dismiss it in the comments as laughter, laughable, and what have you. But the danger with this is that it is not only adults who are consuming this information, but children are consuming it. In fact, nowadays the platform will ask, are you over 18? You click yes. You proceed. You don't provide anything past that. You don't need to provide an email address like before. You don't provide anything. And you will find that our children nowadays are highly exposed to internet from the age of 4 years. So you can imagine if from 4 years to age 18, you've been exposed to an anti-rights campaign continuously through humor and through media. It means that for the last 14 years, the movement building that has happened in you is anti-rights, such that by the time you're becoming an adult, you don't even just believe in non-equality, but you are now bordering on hate. And that is why you are seeing a lot of femicide around. You see, most of the time we deal with femicide as its definition under the law. But we are not seeing the root cause is that there has been a movement building against women in a proper anti-rights campaign. So if we are not very careful, we might lose on the equality spectrum only on account of social media and the digital platforms. But if we are very strategic, we should be having the same movement building that we had on ground, dealing with stakeholders, value clarification platforms, as well as policy, advocacy, and legal representation aspects. We should still come with the same mandate in the online digital space, such that now the movement building has been switched from ground level, physical level, to the virtual space, that all conversations that are happening are to the narrative of equality, to the narrative of pushing feminism, and ensuring that there is gender equality in all spaces. Let me pick a good example that has always been highlighted, and at least the Honorable Chief Registrar of the Judiciary was able to bring it up. 2/3 gender role has been a very big issue, and many a times we look at it from the conversation of boardroom discussions. How well are we able to solve this from boardroom level, from political parties level, and PPDT, which is the Political Parties Dispute Tribunal. The biggest challenge is that you are looking at the cake from the icing level. You see, the cake has an inner bit, there are layers that form. The best way, why don't we use the digital platform to do movement building towards having more women in leadership spaces? What are you doing? You're building it from the ground coming up, such that the society starts being aware and believes that women are able to be leaders, so that it's not taking the narrative of anti-rights that is now running around. It's more focused on how are we able to empower more women from the grassroots level or from the community-based level to believe and have in mind that women are able to be leaders just as men are. Because you'll find at the community level, at the bottom discussion here, we'll say that as we believe in gender equality. But at the community level, when you go to the community, you will find that they keep saying, si tunaamini ni wanaume tu ndio wanaweza. Such that the positions that are only left for women are women representative positions. And you see that is a very wrong narrative. But at the ground level, if we're able to use the digital platform to literally push on movement building, such that all other spaces, instead of just having G7, we can have G20, 24, 25. So that we have 24, 25 governors who are now women. So that is what we are now pushing, not just women repositions, but all other platforms and spaces that are able to capacity build and capacity generate through the digital platform. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise, for that. From movement building, now back to the Law Society. Natasha, you sit as chair of the chairs, so basically you know, in the thick of the leadership of the Law Society. So what responsibility do lawyers have in terms of protecting public trust? That's a question I'd asked before. Protecting public trust and strengthening democratic institutions in the era of digital transformation. As a society, what can lawyers do?
So I think we can look at this in a number of different ways. I think understanding it, I think first of all, our duty is to ensure that we are able to strengthen democracy through the use of those digital platforms. Of course, you know, technology can be used for entertainment, as like we was mentioned, for good things. But also, I think at the back of our mind, we should always have that we now have the power within our hands to actually make a difference, and it's easier now than it was before. So our plan as advocates, I think, first of all, is to ensure that we strengthen democracy. Then at the same time, there's this whole idea of data protection. There's the whole idea of ensuring that people's privacy is protected. There's also, we need to challenge misinformation. We see a lot of that, guys. It's always posted somewhere, and sometimes just scroll past it, we're like, that's not my problem. Unfortunately or fortunately, as advocates, I think the country looks at us as the body or the group of people that is meant to ensure that the country is kind of moving in the right direction. And as much as I always say this, I've not seen any other profession that has that much burden on them, despite us technically doing an LLB because you want a salary for some people. But I think it comes with a very great responsibility. And also I feel like we need to ensure that there's no unlawful surveillance, and you know this would be a big thing, especially now going into the elections next year. There'll be a lot of that going on. There is a lot of that going on, and I think we definitely need to be alert and aware, and we have to equip ourselves with the ability and the necessary laws to be able to ensure that there's no unnecessary and illegal surveillance going on the ordinary Mwananchi and ourselves. And I think we just need to make sure that we use the platform for purposes of promoting justice, equality. I know it's not always rainbows and butterflies and flowers, but as long as our mindset is, this is the main purpose as to why we're using that, then I think we can basically harness this, what we now call a power, for public good and for the good of ourselves. And just hearing what my colleague has just said, saying that for 14 years you could possibly be having your children or your nephews or nieces or someone being exposed to an anti-rights movement is a very scary thought, guys. So that for us as advocates should be a call and a rally to us to ensure that we're not allowing such a space, because in as much as you're setting up yourself in a family or friends or wherever, where you're being like, we're pro-movement, we're pro-rights, we're pro-women, but once you leave them for that 1 hour of speaking to them face-to-face and they're on the social media for the next 5-6 hours, there's nothing that we're doing. That really scared me. Thank you. That's a good wake-up call for me as well. And I think the whole idea is for us to just use technology in a way that would allow our country to move forward in a transparent manner, in a just manner, in an accountable manner. I know these are big words that we always throw around, but I truly and really believe that if we have a group of people that have like-minded ideas and like-minded thoughts in terms of how we want the democracy of this country to move forward and how we want this country to move forward, I think it's possible. And we've been shown numerously over the past 2-3 years, including a whole generation of Gen Zs that are telling us it has to go in a certain manner. Oh, I like how heads popped up when I said Gen Z. That's, that's very interesting. But it can be done. I think we just have to have a train of thought that we're all agreeing with, that the country needs to move forward in this certain direction. Sorry, I went off the path a bit there, but yes.
Thank you very much. Commissioner, is a question for you. With regard, what in your view does a gender-responsive digital ecosystem look like? And how is Kenya faring so far? It's a FIDA forum. We want to know how, yes, so it matters gender. We'd like to know it from your perspective.
From an ecosystem, let me say, what would it look like? I think one of the issues that there is a gap is in terms of data collection that is consistent or research based on specifically on women. I think that's a gap that we seem to be having data collection, but it is not specific to perhaps FIDA needs. I think there's need for a bit of more research. But generally speaking, some of them has been spoken about. What does a gender-specific ecosystem mean? One, it's in terms of access. When we speak about access, we are talking about how many, if we want women to access the digital space, it's also about economic empowerment. How many of them are being able to access information? And speakers, the CRJ spoke about that. She said, perhaps some of the challenges we have is even as we promote access to justice, access to economic empowerment, how many women do have access to smartphone, for instance? That is one of the things that I would like to say. The other thing in terms of how the ecosystem looks like is unfortunately issues around gender-based violence. It's been spoken by Dennis a lot. At an ecosystem, it's not looking good. We are consistently seeing women being subjected to gender-based violence from a digital space. And there needs to be deliberate effort to try and tone that down. I know FIDA is doing a lot. I think a lot more needs to be done. And also from that also ecosystem, the thing I see, and I also want to pick some conversation has been spoken about, the truth is we don't own platforms. And I know from a regulatory perspective, in instances where we have tried to push back some of these big tech, they write back and tell us, please share with us your mutual legal assistance. Because that is a big challenge when it comes to prosecuting or investigating big tech. Because that doesn't exist. There exists one on cyber security, there exists none on data protection globally. So when it comes to enforcement, then when you have that kind of pushback, that becomes a challenge. The other thing that I would like to talk about in terms of women access is the issue around services. We really must commend our judiciary, even at, we now are seeing, previously, I don't know whether FIDA has implemented women access through using Teams, I don't know. But give it to the judiciary. What that access has done is previously women who had to go long distance, they now can actually address their matters. So that is, I think, in the right direction. I have spoken about economic inclusion. We've seen money-wise, I don't have the statistic of it, but we've seen a growth. Previously, people have to walk into a bank. Now we all transact online. So that is a good thing. The other one, a voice and participation. We see increasingly in the digital space, we see women able to voice their views online, and that is a good space in terms of the ecosystem. Of course, there are disadvantages. Some of them have been spoken about: doxing, fake news. Those are things that we have to live with, but we have to think how better can we address those concerns. And just because I'm sitting here also as a regulator, I will say at times the difficulty there is in terms of regulating that space is because of ownership of platform, and also at times we are very woke in a society, but at times some good initiatives get lost. For instance, the concern about takedown, there was a conversation around takedown. And CA, Communication Authority, brought some of the proposals in terms of what we need to bring down. But the noise then gets lost because people then say, if you allow people to take down, you're interfering with freedom of expression. We are unable to be very clear what this means. So when we take away that power to take down, it becomes difficult to take down. And like it's been given an example here, like what's happening in the US. The truth of the matter is this economy in the midst of things is not viable for a social media platform. When you engage them, they say you're a small dot in the context of big tech. What value are you adding? How much money are you bringing to the table? So you can't push them. So let us also be careful when, and perhaps FIDA Kenya can initiate those kind of discussion, take down conversation with a specific target. If it is take down on targeting women, let's support those initiatives, because at times it can get lost in the noise. The other one that I would like to talk about in terms of making that space much more safe when it comes to that, we've seen a growth, and sadly imagine we just have to copy from Europe because we don't have our own initiatives. When it comes, what you're seeing a growth in the European countries is marking AI. It is a movement, it's now a requirement by the European Union that when you generate AI content, you must label it. Say this is AI generated, and then you send. We are not doing that here yet, which is a risk for me, which I'll also speak to partly when I sit on the panel on election. I think we need to label. When we label, when it goes, then we know this is AI. But we are not doing that. So by the time a woman is coming to voice and is campaigning, she's been so mudslinged. And we know that a lie moves how many times around the world before the truth actually has a chance. So can we label? The other one, which we are seeing, and we need to make it safe, we are seeing countries beginning to regulate the age when children can access social media. And it should matter to us. Let's not say it's a thing of the past. We allow our children to be on social media. We are happy that they're on social media. But Dennis has said, we are eroding, and we are not safe. We are not giving a safe net to those children. I hope I've done justice to the question.
Dennis, I will finish with our AI expert. Dennis, just as a follow-up question, with regards to having worked at FIDA and being a teacher and being exposed to all these things, where do you think FIDA should focus in terms of advocacy, just to ensure that the digital divide is, we can be done with it, so that the haves and the have-nots, when it comes to digital transformation, are on the same path?
Okay, so first I would build up on a point that Madam Commissioner had spoken about. She had asked a question on whether FIDA is looking into the space of using the digital tools like Teams and Zoom to enable access to justice. I would actually say yes, under the able leadership of the current executive director, that is Sophie Kaibiria, as well as the deputy executive director, Janet Anyango. They've been able to spearhead conversations on how best access to justice can be used through, or rather access to justice can be facilitated through digital platforms. And by digital platforms, I'm using these meeting tools, the Zoom, the Teams, and we know one of the key challenges that they've been facing is, or the FIDA has also been facing, is not everyone understands how to use the platforms for access to justice. Navigating through Teams and Zoom, even for the judiciary, was a very big challenge before people in Kenya were able to now learn how to best access those platforms. I know one other thing that they are really spearheading in FIDA is just getting in touch with donors, well-wishers, and even philanthropists to be able to provide more machinery that enables them to provide the said service digitally. Because that is one aspect, and the most beautiful thing today is that the hardware, digital hardware, that is iPads, laptops, computers, have become more affordable than before. And nowadays we say it's not a must that you buy new, even the refurbished machines can still be used to enable the same. So I am answering that bit from the commissioner about whether FIDA is, and also inviting people to be part of the philanthropists. Yes. So now I go to my question. Yes.
Shortly, just finish.
Yeah.
Up.
So one of the things that FIDA can build up on is riding on artificial intelligence. And I know Madam Afrophilia will be finishing as the expert. Riding on artificial intelligence, I always tell people that it is not that artificial intelligence is intelligent. What it does is that it gives a summary of whatever information that has been fed in the internet, and actually you can even just access ChatGPT, ask it a question, even on what we've discussed today on financial assets and investments, like what Mwalimu Sacco was talking about. Just ask it that question. You'll find that it has small links about Mwalimu Sacco up there, and then other platforms, so that it shows you that it is just giving a summary. Then it will ask you, do you want me to give you more that is personalized? Tell me more about yourself, so that it can tailor make. One thing that artificial intelligence doesn't have, it doesn't have human experience. It only has a collection of knowledge that has been submitted on the internet. It doesn't have human experience that we are now feeling in this world. So there is no time that artificial intelligence will say that I was discriminated upon, so this is what I feel. This is the Me Too movement. I was also abused. I was also this and that. The artificial intelligence doesn't have that. It will just tell you, if you think this has happened to you, follow 1, 2, 3, 4. And it becomes a challenge because you now don't know how to pick this and put it into your own context. So how will FIDA now come in utilizing this space, the artificial intelligence space, to be able to push forward the gender equality narrative? One, the publications that FIDA has, it needs to feed the same on the internet platform in a manner that these AI bots are able to now access it. Whenever somebody asks for a question, it becomes more centralized on the local space, so that the people are able to now get that this narrative has also been pushed by FIDA, and it's a narrative that is ongoing. It has not stopped anywhere. So that artificial intelligence is not used in a manner that gives you non-contextual. We even usually say the terminology hallucinations, because it doesn't have context. It imagines what experience is there in Kenya or in Africa. But when you feed information that artificial intelligence can access, then that helps you, without you using a lot of strength, to be able to drive the narrative. Lastly, as I close, there's the use of AI chatbots. You will now see nowadays a lot of companies, a lot of organizations, like we were even being told, write a message on there. It was 0741 100 100. Write a message to the WhatsApp line. When you write it, the AI chatbot will answer you. You can still have AI chatbots as part of, because FIDA Kenya usually has a toll-free line. You can have an AI chatbot as part of the toll-free line, so that even when people are asleep, this person is in danger and can access WhatsApp, because many people access WhatsApp. They ask a question, they are getting quick responses, so that by the time morning is reaching, they are already halfway through legal aid or psychosocial support, then now the rest can continue when everyone is awake. So that is how it can be used to further gender equality. Yeah.
As we finally finish, from the expert, I want to know, like, what is the one conversation you think we should be having about AI, digital transformation, gender justice, and democracy in Kenya that we are not having? In 3 minutes as we finish.
Oh God, it's a lot. Huh? 3 minutes.
Try summarize in point form.
3 minutes might not be enough, but what I will start by saying, the conversation we're not having about AI is this. Sorry? Is it on? Is working? The reason why I was explaining how the AI Act came and why the liability one was pulled is so that I finish with this. Why we need to be concerned as an African people. Because we are officially in the 4th industrial era. Whether we like it or not, we are officially in the 4th industrial era, the age of intelligence. These AI technologies are coming to not just revolutionize, but democratize everything from intelligence to health to whatever. Personally, I'm in the health innovation space. And what is happening is this. It is a well-known and documented fact so far that these technologies underperform on darker skin tones, the Fitzpatrick skin types 4 to 6, which is where all of us exist. The reason why a lot of funding is being directed to health innovation projects in the African continent and other LMIC settings is because of this representation factor. Because the areas, how coherent a model is depends on the training and the data purity. So if it was trained largely with only European data, white people data, it means it will underperform. So realistically, for the regulators in the room, realistically, any AI device model that has been trained, validated in the global north should not be deployed to our Kenyan people without the precursor of assessment and retraining validity for drift, for concept drift and performance drift. So why we need to get involved with this conversation is, once again, in this age of intelligence, the 4th industrial era, African nations are doing what we have been doing from the 1st industrial era, designating ourselves as that continent that the best we can do is only provide raw material. So when Commissioner here talks about data extraction, that is what she means. Personally, I feel like as an African people, we need to also change the conversation around this data stewardship to looking at it in terms of wills and inheritances. Fine, we can use each other. Two truths can exist in a room. They can come with their money, fund these projects, but we can also make this thing work for us. Why can't we look at data stewardship for the benefit of the African people? I'm a big fan of patterns and aggregated statistics and whatever, and what these patterns communicate, and most importantly, what inferences we could draw from all of these things to inform the future. So we are here busy collecting all of this data. How can we as African nations control this data? So we move past who owns the data or where it's domiciled to the conversation around how can we, through concerted efforts and coming together, use these data sets being collected in the African continent to inform future directions for the African people. And then from there, we move on to the second layer of things where, at this point, personally, I feel one of the things that should be changing is our education curricula. Our education curricula is killing us. Why are we still training our kids to compete on so that they can be competitive on a global platform where no one wants them? The African countries do not want them. The West do not want them. So what are we doing? Personally, I've always been, I've always hoped, I'm a dreamer as well, so forgive me. I've always hoped our education system could be switched to teach our African kids to look at our society. Look at what we have. Stop looking at things from a glass is half empty situation. Let us look at things from a glass is half full situation. What do we have? Then we start from what we have to go create what we don't have. You see, I don't know, 3 minutes is not enough.
Let me jump in before. I really like her thrill. I want to challenge us, and that if you go to countries that have thrived, they had more scientists. I think one of the things that we are slowly killing ourselves is we are not encouraging scientists here. The reason we've really, in terms of education system, encouraged examination centered, but we are not encouraging scientists. The way to own those platforms, we must encourage our young people to go into science. It's the only way we can then build a future that our AI expert is talking about. Because more science, the more we will innovate, the more we are going to find solution. But let me also come to lawyers. Can we learn to look for niche markets? The era of mortar and brick, guys, it's gone. And I think everyone, even the guy from Walimu Circles talked about it. Why are we still talking about conveyancing? The truth is, and you'll tell them, in another 5-10 years, those AI will take almost 50-60% of the jobs. Where will you be if you've not developed a niche for yourself?
Thank you very much. Sorry, we are pressed for time. We can't.
Can I take a few minutes? Yeah? Because I'm seeking permission. I had requested just 5 to 7 minutes from the facilitator, and I also mentioned to the chair that I would really want to take about 5 to 7 minutes to give you women. Since yesterday, there's been a lot of conversations going around how we can create impact and how we can make a difference and win in all spaces where we are in. Yes?
Okay, members, are you willing to give out time? But we are giving her 5 minutes because we are pressed for time. 5 minutes.
You can I stand? The conversation I want to have with you will start from a rather weird point, but please indulge me for a bit. I come from a good place, not a bad place, and I also come from a position of a woman who was raised different from how most women are raised in society. So the insights I want to give are insights that have drawn from different areas because I was raised by a woman who herself was affected by the societal construct. She drew the short end of the stick in all areas of life, you see? And she set out to make sure that her 2 girls would not live the kind of life she lived, and her son would be a feminist whether he likes it or not. Yes, and it works. You want a better, we are here, see, we are here as women, tuongetu, it's a safe space. You agree that, and for the men also, this is, trust me, this is not a men are dogs conference. You go pale down the street. This is just, I'm exposing you to a different way of thinking that maybe you might not have come by. And all I ask is that you take what resonates, leave the rest. Sawa. You want to know how to change the society?